for me personally, the sort of approach to playing Macbeth, the character itself, was this idea that we already have a fractured character, somebody who is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and has been ravaged by what he's seen on the battlefield mentally, and that for me I thought was a really original approach to him. So the idea that the witches might be real, or part of his hallucinations, and the fact that he's lacking in sleep, these are all classic sort of symptoms. And that is something that I'd never seen before, just in a personal sort of approach to playing the character. And then, I think the idea that what's it like to sort of be in battle, and the fact that these battle scenes are very visceral, and you get an idea of the landscape and how that affects the characters. I think the relationship between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth is pretty unique, because Justin is really focused on the loss of the child. Something that we, both Marion and myself, found very helpful to play was the fact that they have had this loss together, and they haven't had the chance to mourn the loss of this child. And they have been separated by battle, and that could be month on month, and they've sort of grown apart, and their relationship has been broken to a certain extent. And so when they come back together again, it's almost like they're learning how to touch one another again, how to sort of relate to one another, and that Lady Macbeth gives herself up in a way to sort of this heinous crime of murdering Duncan, in the hope that they will forge together again this relationship that they lost. I think in a way you feel that there is something justifiable in their actions, because Macbeth is out there keeping the kingdom safe, from one battle to the next, one campaign to the next, while Duncan sits on his throne pretty ineffectively. And their lifestyles are very different. And so you see when they arrive at Dunsinane how different it is to their previous existence. And in some ways they feel sort of justifiable, that they deserve some of the fruits of their labor. I mean, if somebody was going to give me the opportunity to play Macbeth, I'd be kind of foolish to turn it down, or chicken, or whatever you want to call it. The challenge was there. I think it's a great privilege and honor to be allowed to take on Shakespeare, and especially on a level like this, and to do it on film. So it was really not a difficult sort of answer, or it was a bit of a no-brainer in terms of taking on the job. But yes, I was nervous, and at times a little sort of scared, let's say. I just went running around the bog a lot with the pretend sword. And no, I didn't. No, I just spent a lot of time with the text. Just sort of a lot of hours reading the text, and reading it and rereading it, and just sort of the repetition of that, and sort of just trying to get myself as best prepared for the rehearsal period, which we were lucky enough to have. We had 2 weeks rehearsal before we started filming. It's a very special experience working with her. I mean, if I was scared, she was terrified. Amazing sort of courage to take on Shakespeare when English isn't your primary language. She's and that just shows how much of a gutsy performer she is as well. She was delightful to work with, because she doesn't try and impose ideas into a scene, or have any preconceptions too much about where the scene is going. She's got that rare ability to let herself be, and sort of experience things in the moment to moment. That wasn't to say that she wasn't incredibly prepared. She was, but she's very awake and alive in a scene. And I mean that when I would sort of throw something in her direction, and she would immediately respond to that, take it on board, and then throw something back at me, and so therefore it's a very sort of playful way of working together. She also has an amazing ability to convey so many things with appearing to do so little, and she can sort of in the one sort of glance she can be very fragile and sort of immovable like a rock as well. So it's a real treat to work with her. Well, I first came across Justin when I arranged a meeting through my agent here in London, because I'd seen Snowtown, and the film it just was so powerful and really had an effect on me when in the cinema, and then for many days afterwards. And so when I met him, just through the chemistry of that sort of meeting, I knew that I was going to learn something from him, and I really wanted to work with him. And then I was proven right, because when I arrived, he's somebody who's got a very strong vision as a director, and the whole idea of approaching Macbeth as somebody who is suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, that was all his idea, and the idea of the loss of a child, and that being a very sort of central theme in the piece, which carries through the story right to the end. That was also something that he was pushing for from the beginning. And so, I really have to say, without him, I would have been in the weeds. I mean, he really, he definitely parted the sort of weeds for me, as it were, and I could see a sort of clear trajectory of the character, and starting from that platform of him suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, everything sort of then made sense to me. We have Lady Macbeth says in the script, we've seen him suffer from these fits before, so we know that before the play starts that he's suffering from something, that this is not the first occurrence when he starts to lose control of a situation or seems to be somewhere else. That's a very classic symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. The idea that he can't sleep, that's another classic example. And the idea that perhaps the witches are real, or perhaps they're part of a hallucination. So all of those things became very tangible for me to play and made a lot of sense for me, and therefore gave me definitely a big key into sort of the mind of the character, really, and the psyche of him.